This podcast brought to you by OuchThatHurts.com. Visit Ouch That Hurts for music, gaming, reviews, editorials, podcasts, and more. Ouch That Hurts. HERTZ.com.
Come hang out and chat with everyone on our Discord channel. Be a part of our community. And welcome to another episode of the Convoluted Podcast. And today we're having a special episode because it's the big haze and craze Endgame just released a little bit ago. If you want to hear my initial thoughts from that night, it's out on Reaction Cast. But I've been asking around of previous guests to see if they want to talk a little Endgame. And one of my buddies from up north is going to be talking with me. Today I have Dwen Noronha from No Inner Monologue. How's it going, man?
Hey, man. How's it going? Thank you for having me on.
Always happy to have you on. You're one of my favorite people from No Inner Monologues.
Oh, wow. Seeing as how that's one of four, I'll take it.
You had a 25% chance. Odds were
there you go.
Reasonable. But yeah, okay. I
want to know. So how many times have you seen it, you said?
So I've seen it 3 times. To this date, I've seen it 3 times now. As far as our recording.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is an anniversary of sorts for me, because I think the first time I came on this show was when Infinity War came on.
Oh yes. If anyone listening, we actually it's roughly about a year now. We had like at least the guys from No Inner Monologue come on, and we had like this kind of the 4 of us talk Infinity War. Surprisingly, it was supposed to be like a soccer episode, but it turned into Infinity War.
He wanted us to talk about the World Cup, and we decided, you know what? Let's talk about Infinity War.
But yeah, it's been a year. It's been an interesting, like, I'm going to say it's been an interesting 10/11 years getting to this point as far as films. I'm glad. Hello?
I was going to say sorry, I don't mean to cut you off again, but like, I don't know when this episode drops, but today is the actual 11th-year anniversary of Iron Man 1.
Okay, so it's actually going to drop Friday, so later today, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Anyone? Yeah, it's gonna be so. Yesterday. So yesterday was the 11-year anniversary. Wow. Robert Downey Jr. has been doing a lot in these 11 years.
He's you know what's the neat thing about Robert Downey Jr. and the Tony Stark Iron Man character is that, like, when you think about it, like when Iron Man first came out, or right before Iron Man first came out, that summer, that was the summer of The Dark Knight. And sort of that was like the big comic book movie from what everybody was talking about because of the whole Heath Ledger thing. But if you were to there was like when Spider-Man came out, like you knew people who were Spider-Man fans, and I'm not saying that there weren't any Iron Man fans, but Iron Man was sort of like the lesser of the Marvel universe. And then sort of in the last 11 years, Robert Downey Jr. has made Tony Stark more Robert Downey Jr.-ish. And that sort of influenced how cool we've all kind of seen him as, you know?
No, yeah, actually, in a lot of like cartoon media, you can see that influence is pretty heavy in that sense. You can see it's a lot of the actors have really, you can see it a lot. Like these movies and these actors have really, like, some of these obscure characters, because everyone knows, like, a Batman and Superman, like those are the key heroes everyone knew. But when it came to Marvel, like, people just kind of knew Spider-Man and Hulk and the because
and you knew X-Men, and
So
like I think Marvel always did a good job, at least in their cartoon universe, of making sure that it was a universe.
So when Marvel started picking up with all these films, like little by little, they've been doing so much work. I kind of, what's interesting is thinking about it. I kind of want to know what was happening with Kevin Feige and his team when they first said, I want to make an Iron Man film, and what was happening in that conference, like saying, I want to do this and this and that, because something had to be. Go for it.
Well, from what I remember, in the very early days of Marvel putting together their movies, because they were going through a period where they were at one point very close to being bankrupt, they sold all the rights. Now, I don't remember the details perfectly, but they sold the rights of their biggest characters to Sony with Spider-Man, Fox with X-Men, and I believe there was and Universal with Hulk. And so the only sort of characters that they had to work with were sort of these ones that nobody really wanted, which was Hulk, Thor, not Hulk, Iron Man, Thor. In that first round of them saying they were going to make their own movies, Ant-Man was discussed at that time, and it was going to be Edgar Wright, who directed the Simon Pegg movies and Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Okay.
And that was way back when, like that was before even Iron Man was made. And Edgar Wright basically wrote the script, helped write the script for it, and did the whole wait of when Ant-Man was going to be released, and then left because of creative differences. I mean, he was pretty much on that project for like 10 years or something of that nature, whenever the first the Ant-Man came out. But that's kind of the thing. They came out with Iron Man first, and I think they were so pleasantly surprised with how well it was received that at that point they were like, well, there's maybe something here to make it to actually build the universe around it. And what's even cooler is like I was saying before, if you watch any Marvel cartoon, they always treated their universe like a universe. You'd watch X-Men and Spider-Man would show up every once in a while, or you'd watch the Hulk cartoons. I mean, now it's a little bit different. It's still a universe, but not really. But back in the day, in the 90s, when they had the X-Men cartoons and the Spider-Man cartoons, you'd always see these like cross-pollination, and it wasn't a big deal. Whereas if you watch like DC stuff, they would always be like, Superman guest stars in this episode. Now they're going to be Superman, Batman, all-stars, So I think it's real smart that they like sort of keyed in on that early and slowly built this sort of cool thing. And then all the geeks in us were like, oh my God, what are they doing?
Oh yes. It's been a long road to get here, and there's been a couple hit or miss in those films, but there's that's the other thing I was thinking about. Like there was a few misses, but even the misses weren't horrible. You know what I mean? Like they weren't like.
Like if I think of a Marvel movie or like a Marvel Studios movie that I walked out and I was like, oh man, I did not enjoy that. I think the first one that comes to mind, it's not even I did not enjoy that. I just thought like there's just a real sort of letdown compared to the other movies. The first one that comes to mind is Age of Ultron.
Okay.
Well, like compare that to the first Avengers. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's kind of It is. I'm not gonna lie. I'm thinking about it now. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it is kind of like it had to kind of like succeed its successor, and having the first Avenger, it's pretty iconic, being its first crossover, and then kind of like, okay, this is the next Avenger. So there's a lot to live up to, and there was a lot in that film that you had to really pique your interest into it. But you're thinking about it, there were a few things that kind of held that film a little down compared to some of the others.
Yeah, I've always found like the big strength with, and anytime they've had one of these little crossover things, whether it be Avengers or Black Widow in the Captain America movies, or Civil War, where it was basically an Avengers movie. The coolest parts are the points where they're interacting, and you get to sort of see how sort of chummy they are, right? How like on a sort of personal level. And the only scene in Ultron that has that is that little scene where they're in the bar, and it's the one where Stan Lee's playing one of Captain America's old war buddies, and then they do the scene with the lifting of the hammer and all that. Like,
yeah,
that's really the best scene in that movie, because that's the first time you see them sort of interacting and being kind of fun, which the rest of the movie doesn't really have. And man, if you have James Spader, you really need to do a lot better with it. You need to do a lot better with him, because James Spader is a fucking treasure.
Like I'm currently thinking of some of the films I kind of like see as one of the lower film for me.
Yeah.
For me, when I think about it, I think one of them for me is honestly Thor 2: The Dark World.
Yeah.
That one, if you would ask me to watch almost all the films, I would think I would be the least excited to rewatch that one. Because
sorry, go.
No, okay, so I'll finish my thought and then you can go in. So for me, like, the first Thor was, it's introducing the character, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It's an intro movie. And when they were trying to expand a little bit more of the lore of who Thor and more of what the universe is hold, like, they were really trying to go for this, like, dark thing, and it just didn't feel right. Like, there was very few moments in that movie that I can really, like, honestly, like, to say, like, I can recall. Like, there's very few compared to when you think back to, like, Thor Ragnarok. There are so many quotable moments from that film, and like I don't know, it just didn't. Not that it didn't fit. Whoever was directing or writing the Thor Dark World, like had some vision. It just didn't pan out right, and I think a lot of audience members also felt that way.
Yeah, I think the problem, the sort of star of Dark World is Loki, right?
Yes.
Because you get a full arc out of him. You get like a full, like, he's a bad guy or whatever. But then, like, there's the one scene I remember very clearly from that movie is he's in the prison. It's just after their mothers passed away, and he's in the prison, and he looks very, like, cool and stuff. And then Thor's like kind of looking at him like, I know you're pretending or whatever. And then he flashes over and he's just a complete wreck, because he's just, he's so upset that his mom's gone. And I like, he's sort of the arc in that, because you have him be the bad guy, you have him sort of like, take over Asgard eventually at the end of it. Spoilers to whoever hasn't seen it. But you know what? That movie too, like, I think Marvel always had this idea of Thor being like the Shakespeare version of the Marvel universe. But the minute you bring, like, Thor was always the odd man out in the Avengers, because you would have, like, Tony Stark, science, Hulk, science, Captain America, built on, created through science. Natasha and Hawkeye are sort of they're not science, but they're sort of they're based on the human world. And then all of a sudden you have like Thor show up and he's like, I'm magic.
Yeah,
So
in a sense, you're right.
Right? So he was always sort of just like, wait, what?
Space
and then
science.
Yeah, exactly. We're so sciencey. We're gods now. And what's neat about the one thing I like about it is like apparently Marvel saw that and they were like, look, we can't, we could keep going on with this. We had a plan for it, but it's just not going to work with the rest of it, with the rest of the stories that we have going on. And I think they said they really clued in to the fact that like Chris Hemsworth's such a funny guy. Like, he's a legitimately funny dude. And he, on his end, he had said that he had listened to a podcast or something with Kevin Smith, where Kevin Smith was talking about how, part of that whole thing I just told you, the magic and science thing, like Kevin Smith had said that on his podcast during the first Avengers. But Chris Hemsworth had heard something about Kevin Smith saying that, the thing with Thor is you kind of, it's, I'm throwing this part in there, but you watch Game of Thrones, right?
Some of it. I haven't seen it completely through.
Oh, have you seen Game of Thrones? Sorry?
Like, okay, so kind of tangenting a little bit. As far as Game of Thrones, I've never seen it completely through, but I've seen it with people who do watch it. So I've like sat down next to people who have seen episodes.
Okay.
So
this isn't really a spoiler, but there was that big episode this past weekend.
Okay, I've seen it because that's
right.
a big talk.
Okay, and there's been a character throughout the whole arc of this show, the Daenerys, the mother of dragons, and she's always been sort of shown as a badass. But then sort of in that scene with the zombies and all that, the Nightwalkers, she loses her dragon, and then all of a sudden she's sort of like very vulnerable. She doesn't know, she's not really sure how to, because that was always her trump card. And I think that was Kevin Smith's point with Thor. He was like, we just always see Thor with a hammer. Like once he has the hammer, he's good. No matter what happens, he's good. And he's like, I'd like to see a new version of it. Maybe he loses the hammer, maybe he loses the hair, and then he has to like rebuild himself in such a way. And like that's why Ragnarok's so amazing. Like it's super funny, which is insane for the tone of it all. But
yeah, big props. Yeah,
but like if you follow, say Ragnarok is your starting point, and to some extent, let's actually go back and say Dark World is your starting point, because because Endgame sort of does that, sort of helps, sort of forces you to go back and watch Dark World. But if you start off at sort of the midpoint at Dark World and go all the way to the end of Endgame, like that is some serious arc for Thor, and it's like a real the word is like it's a there's a point in the movie, like I don't know what are we doing here? Are we dropping spoilers? Are you going to make like a big? Are you going to make sure that people know this is a spoiler episode?
Yeah, I was about to we're going to tangent into okay, we're going to start with Endgame. I was about to go into them, and it's spoilers. Anyone, honestly, if you clicked on this, you want to know what our thoughts are. So
yeah, can you put that in the title? Can you put that in the title of this episode so people don't come and try and kill us?
Okay, I'm just going to put giant caps, spoilers, Endgame. There.
Yeah.
With
so
Dwen
all spoilers
Noronha.
past this point, people.
All right.
But yeah,
okay, let's talk Thor then. Let's go with Thor then.
Okay. So Thor, by the beginning of the movie, he's really depressed about the whole you should have gone for the head bit, and eventually he does. But dude, it is completely earned that he is depressed.
No, yeah.
He lost his mother, he lost his father, he lost his planet, he lost half of Earth.
He lost just clearly almost everything. Like he's
right. Sorry. I take that back. He lost his mother, he lost his father, he lost his brother, and then he loses half of Earth. Yeah, he killed his sister, and he loses the sister. See, the sister is somebody he's not like he just met, so you can at least be like, okay, that was a. But he loses. Even he loses his planet, and then he loses most of the people on that ship too. Because at the beginning of Infinity, the ship is Asgard at that point, right?
Yes.
So he's just lost a lot of people to, he's just lost a lot of people. And his whole self-worth is supposed to be like, I'm supposed to be the protector. I'm supposed to be the strongest one, the worthy one, Oh, and he lost the damn hammer.
He lost a lot. Let's go with that. Throughout the film.
No, but that's what I mean.
To this build up, to lose everything, yeah.
Yeah, but and again, I'm really not one of these Marvel DC kind of guys. Like I'm really happy that Aquaman and Shazam were as great as they were, and Wonder Woman. But you compare that to Superman, who just his whole depression angle was just not earned, man. It just felt off. But the end of Superman, Man of Steel, he's sort of like, I'm happy we killed the guy and we're good. And then by the time Batman and Superman came around, he's like, you know what, something feels off.
Yeah, I feel you there. I actually feel you there. Yeah.
Right. So I just feel like if you compare the two, you can really tell they took they took little bits and pieces and they were just like, this guy is gonna go through some shit, and he does, and it again.
It shows.
It shows. Huh? Well, that's what I mean. This is coming from this was coming from the Kevin Smith's opinion of Endgame. But man, that was a real big swing that they took, right? Because I was I was thinking the same thing. I was like, at some point in the movie, he's gonna he's gonna get in shape. They'll probably do a Rocky montage or something. But they were like, fuck it, we're just going with Fat Thor the whole way through.
Oh god. So you watched it opening weekend, right?
Yeah, so I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it any of the opening shows. I watched it on the Saturday at 9:30.
So you still had
Sorry.
No, keep going.
I still had just I was saying I was in a theater with a surprising amount of children.
Really?
9:30 at a Saturday night. Yeah.
Okay, but you still had a good amount of people showing, because when it comes to these kind of films, when it comes to opening nights, you kind of get this general type of person, they're there because they want to see a Marvel movie. So how was your audience's reaction? Because I've seen it 3 times, so I've gone in it 3 times. What was their expression when you saw Fat Thor for the first time?
Oh, people friggin' they loved it. People in our theater loved it, because it was just so shocking, especially the way they pulled it off. Because they go to New Asgard, they see Valkyrie. She's like, I don't know if he's willing to she's like, I don't know if he's willing to see anybody, and then he's just the first scene of him. And I think the brilliant part of that was also adding the two creatures from
Ragnarok.
What the hell was the name of the movie? From Ragnarok, Kronk and Myri,
Korg and
Korg.
Meek.
Sorry, shit. Korg. Yes. I'm bad.
Don't bash him on Instagram, guys. He knows his Marvel stuff. Korg and Meek.
Those guys. I have the TV on right now. They have Emperor's New Groove up, and I saw Kronk, and I was like, oh, that's the first one. but having those two guys in the scene just freaking made it, because you're like, of course he has two Joker guys that he's just chilling with and playing Fortnite and video games with.
I do want to bring up that. So you had a reasonable amount of kids in your showing, right?
Yeah.
How many kids screamed out Fortnite in your showing?
Oh no. All of these. I mean, look. I have a brother. I have an older brother who has a 70-year-old son. I know how hard it is for him and his wife to go out and go and see a movie because you got to make sure about, you got to make sure for babysitting, and you got to make sure that like the kids taken care of and all that stuff, especially for 3-hour movies. That's like a tough ride for a lot of parents. So I sympathize and I understand why you would bring your kid to the movie. But man, some of these kids were just annoying. They were so annoying. Like this one kid who was sitting next to us just wouldn't shut the fuck up. And I was like, you're like 12. If that was my mom, she would have told me to shut up. Like I don't mind kids sort of like whispering to their parents or whatever when the movie's gone, but just straight up talking for the first 20 minutes was annoying. Yeah.
So before we continue, there's something I want to bring up a little bit. So like I said, I saw this movie 3 times, so I have 3 different experiences going into this film and the audience I was in. So the first set of audience I was for my first showing, it was pretty chill. Everyone was clapping when cool things was happening. Everyone was sad when sad things were happening, and laughing when funny things were happening. As far as some of the children moments, I think during my first showing, kids weren't really talking too much except like that one Fortnite, and then just like 2 kids scream out Fortnite, and then that's it. Like that's it. And then once you see it again, because they show it again one more time, there's only that one kid who says it. And it's just funny for funny's sake at that point, because it's just the one kid who's yelling Fortnite out loud. During my second showing, this one's more interesting because I went to an older cinema compared to one of these new ones. So as far as this like older cinema, like the acoustics in that area, in that room, are really bad. So you can hear people whispering from like 8 seats back. It's like really bad. Okay. So I'm gonna be as genuine as I can for this experience, because the second one is I think a little bit more interesting, because it was already my second time watching this film, and my experience was really weird because I was sitting kind of in like an awkward spot. We had this one couple in front of us who literally yelled at us to stay quiet, like told us off to shut the fuck up.
Really?
Even though we weren't talking. And the group I was with, my group was a bit loud, but if the people in front of you would have said, can you guys quiet down a little bit, we would have been respectful and just stay down, and then we would apologize after the film. But they straight up told us to shut the fuck up. And
really?
that made my friends keep shushing them most of the film. There is now during the same showing, there was a family straight behind us. 2 parents, an older, like probably in their teenage son, and their younger son. And their younger son, I'm gonna be honest, in the beginning of the film, he kept like making like comments about a lot of things, and then like towards 1/3 of the film, it just like why does he keep talking and everything? He's like asking questions and things of that nature, but that it's like really hard to hear too because of the acoustics in this. But a little like once it gets to the more exciting points of the movie that we're gonna talk about in a little bit, he started getting like talking about so many of the fun parts of the film, because I had to give it to this kid that he was having the time of his life, because he's probably seen all these movies to get to this point at such a young age, that someone in our age range, that's a weird way to say it, have not seen something like this in a long time. We're lucky in our adult lifetime that we're able to see it, but someone of his age being able to see all these movies and to get to this point, he's probably having the time of his life, and he's screaming, yelling, laughing, crying. And at that point, during the half of that film, I was just like, this kid's just having the time of his life, and I'll just let him have it. So that's...
And I'm with you. I'm with you with that, because, like, these movies are meant to be enjoyed. And if you're watching with people who are enjoying it, it's fantastic, right? Like, for me, like I've mentioned before on my podcast, but like I'm a huge wrestling fan, and generally, wrestling's more fun to watch with a group of people than by yourself. Because by yourself, you can enjoy something. But when you're in a group of people, it's a lot of fun. And, wrestling to some extent doesn't sometimes takes itself very seriously and then sometimes doesn't take itself seriously. Much like Avengers. And I think the one thing I was taking out of it is like you can watch you watch a movie like Avengers and you can enjoy it for what it is and what's happening on screen and enjoy the fuck out of it. But if you have like two guys in the crowd, in the group who are like, well, the time travel doesn't really work out all that well and blah, blah, da, 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 and you're like, all right, can you like,
yeah,
like they make a joke in the movie about it, about how like, they're just like, they do a shout out to Back to the Future and they do a shout out to some of the other time travel movies.
Yes.
Right. And they have Hulk explain the whole theory of time travel in the most confusing way possible, because they're like, listen, don't take the time. It's a joke from Austin Powers, which is don't take the time traveling so seriously. If you try, you'll cross your eyes. Your eyes will get crossed and you won't know what to do. But if you have people who take it so seriously, it ruins it. But if you have people who understand sort of that, like, it's a movie, come enjoy yourself. And this movie really like went out of its way to be like fan service heavy.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's dive a little deep. Then let's start with kind of the. Yeah. So we let's skip over kind of the. We'll skip a little bit of the weird 5-year transition and just jump into like the time travel stuff, because they.
Right.
So they go with time travel and they do a lot of fan servicing here because they have to split up in groups and stuff like that. When they jump into, if I'm remembering right, 2014 for that Avengers first scene, that was fantastic. Rewatching that Unity again, it just gave me chills.
Oh, dude, and then to just, and then to go and just completely make fun of it too. Right? Like having Hulk go there and pretend to be angry when he's not angry. Hello?
Dwen, are you good? Okay, you're good.
Hey, did I lose you? Okay, good. There we go. No, but I was just saying, I don't know if I got cut off or not, but I was saying, like, that scene was amazing, seeing all of them together. But then to have them be in, 2019 or I guess 5 years from now, 2024, or actually 2023, because it's still 2018 when they start. But like to be that version of the Hulk who's now woke and walks around and doesn't want to be angry anymore. It's so cool to see that like quick transition of character development.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we're jumped into it, what did you think of this version of Professor Hulk?
Oh, I friggin' loved it. I loved it because they constantly sort of refer to it in the cartoons. And I'm not a crazy comic book reader, so I always knew that there was like, 90s Professor Hulk out there. But I never thought they would actually go with it. But it was like the perfect time to do it, because now you have had every version of the Hulk possible. You've had your regular angry Hulk. You've had your sort of like loving Hulk from Ultron. You've had Planet Hulk from Ragnarok. And now you've got Professor Hulk. You've got the whole thing. If the next movie ends up being like an Asian kid, you've got Amadeus Cho Hulk and you're sorted.
Damn.
Right? They literally gave you every Hulk possible without giving you a Hulk movie. Well, we're not, they did, but they didn't.
Hopefully one day. So yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, I think I appreciated it the second time around. It was just awkward a little bit because I felt he was pretty. They were using him to the best of what they could write him in, and it felt sometimes awkward seeing him. Like he was funny at some points, but then sometimes like he could do more. Why is he not doing more? But I think during like my second and third showing, I appreciate him a little bit more in what they were trying to do. So I'm hoping they can do more with this character. So let's see.
I'm wondering. Do you think he'll be in any more movies?
He still has a few movies under his contract. At least Mark Ruffalo does.
Does he? Okay, because he seemed like out of everybody in the whole, out of everybody of the original cast, he seemed like the only one who didn't have like Hemsworth obviously has more to, Thor has more of a story now, and probably a cooler story than what we ever thought Thor would be at. But they never really, like, Hulk's story was just like, yo, I'm taking care of Avengers, like the Avengers now. Like, I'm taking care of the facility, and that was that. They never really went further than that.
Okay.
Well, if you just sort of look at all the 5 and where their stories ended.
Yeah.
Was it 5? Was it more than 5?
It's a couple. It's
Captain
a good
America.
amount.
Hold on, Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Hulk. That was the first. The first movie was that, right? Am I missing somebody? Thor. Shoot, Thor. Okay, so 6.
Yeah, 6. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think of the Captain America storyline?
Endgame wise or in its entirety?
Endgame.
Let's see here. So let's stick to kind of the time traveling part first. So
okay, cool.
Yeah. So as far as Captain America, the mirror fight was interesting of him fighting himself, and the little joke of America's ass was funny. And having that little like nod to Captain America being part of Hydra was funny too. It was like, I'm glad they put that in there.
That scene was such a cool callback, because you had like a Captain America scene mixed with was it Civil War with that fight? That fight happens in Civil War, right? Oh no, it happens in Winter Soldier.
Yes, Winter Soldier.
The elevator, yeah. So you're doing the elevator scene, and you're like, all right, well, it's Cap, it's all these guys, it's freaking the Russo brothers. Like, yeah, just do the scene again. The scene was so amazing the first time. Let's try it again. And then they go and pull the Hail Hydra, and it's shot in almost exactly the same way as that comic book panel is shot in. And it's freaking wonderful. Like, it's just such a wonderful nod, and it makes perfect sense.
Yes. Oh, God.
Perfect sense for the movie,
Yes. So continuing with the Captain America. So as far as those scenes, they end up getting the Time Stone by the Ancient One. We can talk about that in a little bit. But since they failed to get the Tesseract, having Tony and Steve go back in time one more time and having them go back to the 70s was interesting, because I'm glad that they were able to bring back, I forget the actress who played Peggy Carter, but having that moment was really interesting, because it's one of those things that Captain America's always, and they hinted it during the movie, and they've always hinted it, is that he has a few regrets of that he missed out during his cold sleep, and you can see it, like, it's been building up a lot, so having him kind of in that scene when he's in the office and he's looking at Peggy Carter from behind the glass, like, yeah. and then how it ends too, him like after returning all the stones and living the rest of his life with her, that was a really sweet moment. Like, I really like that.
Yeah, so did I. And I like everything about it, like the whole, if you look back from Infinity War, the first movie, to now, like everything about it sort of gave you the idea that Captain America is going to die, right? Captain America is going to die. Falcon's going to become the new Captain America. And they just decided, like, screw it. We're gonna give Cap the win. We're gonna let him have his moment. And in a really, like, so it's funny because the two movies you and me have discussed now have been Dark World and what's the other movie we were talking about? And Ultron. Both of those movies were movies we figured were not great, and yet this movie makes sure that you remember stuff from that movie.
Yeah,
from those two movies, right? Captain America grabbing the hammer is the seeds of that scene are set. The seeds of that scene are set in Ultron. When they're right.
All right, God, I got, give me a moment, oh yeah, when that moment, when Thanos is like holding down Thor and you feel that he's gonna retrieve Mjolnir, fuck the hammer. Oh yeah, buddy, God, when you see Captain America just holding it, all three of my showing. The crowd was ablaze. Like, there was not...
That's amazing.
It was like, oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, it was fantastic. It was fantastic.
It was... And you know what's... So the other thing from Ultron that got... So I had forgotten about the scene where they're all carrying the... I remember the scene where they were all trying to pick up the hammer. But I forgot about the scene that he, like, makes it budge slightly, and then the camera sort of moves and you see Thor's face, like, shocked that somebody else can pick it up.
So I actually recently was watching a couple people just discussing this, and they were talking about an old interview that they had with Kevin Feige of like why wasn't Captain America able to pick it up before, and Kevin Feige, I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said that, like, wasn't he worthy or was he not worthy? Like, hinting that, maybe that he just didn't want to lift it to kind of
not pick it up.
Not pick it up.
The theory I read on that. Sorry.
No, keep going. I'll let you, and then I'll go with my theory.
Sorry. I keep cutting you off because I'm the worst. Just because on our podcast we're all friggin' talking over each other. I think that the theory that I read that was actually kind of interesting was he's worthy now because at the time before he lifted it, he was lying to Tony about everything he knew about Tony's parents.
No, yeah, that's actually what I was about to say too. There was honestly still like from Age of Ultron and more. There was still a lot more. Like he had some. It's weird to say it's some worthiness, but there were still a lot of things like holding himself down, like the incident with Tony and Winter Soldier, just his friend overall, the Winter Soldier himself, just all that. There's a lot still holding him down, but then there's still like movies and time progressing this character that he's matured to the point where he's at this point where he's able to fully wield the hammer.
Yeah.
So yeah, oh God, that was I love that scene. Fun scene.
So if you cut back to Ultron again, so I was watching some clips about it, and I saw the scene where he's trying to pick up the hammer, and then right at the end of the movie, they're talking to Thor, and they're like, they're still convinced that he's like, well, if you put the hammer in an elevator, can the elevator go up? And then Thor says, then Captain America's like, well, of course, the hammer, the elevator must be worthy. They're all kind of making fun of him. And at the very end, Captain America and Iron Man are talking. And it's essentially, I guess in the timeline, Tony's retiring from being Iron Man. And so he's like, I'm just going to go live the quiet life. And Captain America's like, yeah, I wish I was able to do that, but I guess now I'm home, And it's like these little one-liners that they sort of like put into the characters that even in like the worst movie, these little lines were there that set up an eventual were actually paid off. All these little one-liners paid off. And I don't know if that was by design or sort of by luck, but it was neat. It was very neat that they had these like that they had a line from like 5 years ago, a one line that just like that paid off. That one little scene paid off twofold,
No, it's a big testament to what they built up to. Because honestly, like thinking like as I actually after watching it before I wrote like my review, I had that mindset of a fan, but then I had to step back and think of it as a movie critic. Like this movie in itself is not like it's not a good movie. If you haven't seen any or some of the movies, some of this stuff in Endgame would not make sense. It would be very convoluted. Like it just wouldn't work for the most part. Like there are some fun scenes. It's a fun movie, but it's not a great movie. But if you think of it as a whole, it works. So it's a very big testament to what it's built up to.
You know what? I sort of looked at it while the movie was going on. I sort of looked at it as a series finale.
Yes.
So, right. So it's not a movie in the traditional sense of like, it's not a movie in the traditional sense of like, oh, okay, well, I watched Infinity War and now I'm watching this movie. And to some points, you could do both of those things. You could do both of those things, and it could be a movie. But like, it's an 11-part. Or sorry, it's a 23 to 25 part TV show. It is. I mean, like, that's like, if you look at it, that is the only way to explain it, because there's so much that has happened to these characters between all this time that the only way to pay it off was to go back and revisit some of the scenes to let you know where you were, right? And there's definitely there's definitely holes. Like every movie from this point forward is going to be every movie from this point forward is 5 years ahead of time.
Yeah. So
right?
Okay.
And and to another extent, I'm like for the fun time, like as much as I just said we shouldn't take the time travel seriously, there are some real fun questions to be had with the time travel.
Yeah, we can get into that in a second. So once we finish up our little like nerding out, then we can start like nitpicking it. So let's keep going a little bit. So talking about more characters during the time travel before we get into like the ultimate fight scene. Let's talk Natasha and Hawkeye.
Okay.
So
if anybody's ever listened to our podcast, Tash from our podcast hates Hawkeye. And I was
really?
Like,
I did not know that.
Oh, she hates him. If you go back a year, we had an Infinity War. We did a Marvel episode, and she just hated Hawkeye. And I do the drawings for our episodes. And I drew her as Hawkeye because that just seemed like the right thing to do. But she hates Hawkeye, and I haven't spoken. I know she saw the movie on Monday, so I haven't really had a conversation with her about it. But I want to know what her opinion is of Hawkeye in this movie, because everybody, Marvel fight scenes for the most part tend to be sort of forgettable, with the exception of like the elevator scene, the fight scene between Tony and Captain America.
Beautiful.
For the most part, a lot of the times you're there for the sort of the quips, then the fighting, right? The fight choreography. But the scene with friggin' Hawkeye in Japan was incredible.
Yes, totally.
You took a long time to say yes there. I was like, did you not think it was a
I think no, you cut off for like the last second. I thought you were still talking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
Because they made him. What was that movie? It was a Keanu Reeves movie, I think. Ronin.
Yeah, that was who everyone thought he was going to be. That was his like alter ego or something. The Ronin. So they used that depiction of Hawkeye for this older Hawkeye.
Oh, by the way, that opening scene with his family was fucking perfect.
Oh god!
Like they just made the snap. Like the snap felt horrible the first time you watched it. The snap felt exactly the same a year later in a different scene.
No, yeah, it was a good reminder. It was a good reminder to let the people know, like, here's a character you've been watching, of him living a peaceful life, and a reminder of like something just happened, and this happened to the people around him. It was like, yes, yeah, it was. It hits still hard, even knowing that it's going to happen. So I felt it's kind of hard when thinking about Hawkeye's character, because he's only been ever used in moments throughout multiple films. He's never had his own, like, he has certain points in movies where his character develops a lot, but it's always kind of like felt underwhelming because he's always kind of on the shadow of someone else. And unless you're really paying attention to his character, you don't understand how much he's grown. Because if you actually pay attention, like for most of it, we've seen every film more than once or twice, so we've noticed that there's been a lot of growth to his character. So when it came to the moment when they were trying to get the Soul Stone, I already had it in my mind that that Black Widow was going to die, just from what we got from her during the beginning of Endgame, the way she talked, the way she was feeling, because it looks like this is one of her lowest points that we've ever seen her. Like we got it kind of when in Winter Soldier, when she found out she was part of Hydra all along, and she was just she was more upset and betrayed at that point. But in Endgame, she was more defeated and at a loss, and she was trying to do her best and still feeling she was not utilizing her abilities to the best as she could.
Yeah,
I
think the only thing that sort of caught me by surprise was, because that is the one sort of like benefit and negative of the Marvel universe, is that we know that when the snap happened, like when the first snap happened, you were like, oh, okay, we know there's a Spider-Man 2 coming out. We know there's a Black Panther 2 coming out. We know, that
Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is coming out. So we kind of had an idea that these things were going to happen and that these characters would come back. But like, so when I'm watching the scene where she's they're making the choice as to who's going to fall, who's going to go, who's going to sacrifice themselves. I'm like, it has to be Clint. I'm thinking to myself, like, it has to be Clint because she has a movie coming out.
Really? Okay.
And yeah, there's a Black Panther movie. There's a Black Widow movie coming out.
Okay, I knew about the Black Widow, but I knew she was still gonna die. I just felt
like thinking back to it now, the happy ending is the man getting back with his family, right? Even in the scene, yes. She's like, I didn't even know my father's name till he said it. So like, her giving herself up for that, it makes 100% sense. I just, in that moment, I was like,
your
future sort of like took.
your
Yeah,
future
the story
knowledge that
could
they're
just step
filmed.
aside and think given. But
that gave you that moment of more surprise, right?
Yeah, exactly. It gave me a big surprise. And I think the other thing was just like, for a line of movies where like everybody dies and then comes back to life, they killed off a few characters in this movie. Like
Yes.
legit killed off a few characters in this movie.
So before we get into one of the biggest ones of Tony, let's get into like the big there's two parts, the Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man fight versus Thor. Then we'll get into the big war fight. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was your initial thoughts when those three guys were like marching their way up to Thanos? Actually, what did you think of Thanos? Actually, yeah. What did you think of like I'm gonna just say past Thanos coming into the present and his way. What do you think of Thanos here?
So first, I was like, big props on them for killing off Thanos. What, 11 minutes into the movie?
Yeah. Actually, one of my cousins made a joke. He said like, "Oh, there goes the movie. Let's go home." Like, that's it. And honestly, I was surprised too. I was like, "What are they gonna do now?" Okay.
Yeah. So like, you killed off this guy 11 minutes in the movie. That's already huge. Then from there, they sort of like did this cool, like it was neat. Like one of my favorite characters from all these Marvel movies, from the first movie, has been Nebula. I fucking loved her, the way Karen Gillan played that character, and then the fact that she got more in Volume 2, and then now was such an important part of this movie.
Yeah,
and another character who's had like a really crazy amount of depth. So using her character and using a bit of science, using a bit of weird science to bring younger Thanos into the movie was super interesting, because that's his line of like, "I am inevitable," is he's now seen a future where he's like, "I won. This idea that I have can come together," and he's younger, and he's younger, and he's not so like he's realized like, I did all the work. In the original movie, he does all the work of going all over the place and getting all the stones, and for the last 22 movies, like there's been little bits and pieces of him getting all the stones and doing all the work. Now he's like looking at these things and he goes, they can do the work for me and it'll happen a lot faster, and then it's a quick snap. And it was just sort of like, he just realized, it's like a Thanos who realizes, I don't have to do the work. I'm still stronger than I will be, obviously, 4 years from now. And roughly, I have this army, and right, like whatever, yeah, because saying, well, for the example, we'll say to 2014 to 2018. So he knows, he's got 4 years from now, I'm going to be way stronger. And I know that if I go on the path that I wanted to go, 9 years from now, I'm going to die. So why not go and do what I need to do this way? So it was a really cool way of introducing him into the movie again, having a younger Thanos. But like, for all intents and purposes, like Infinity War, is it Thanos? Thanos is the main character in that movie.
Oh yeah.
You're just basically following. It's Thanos, and then everybody else is like sideshow. So it was nice that in this movie, one, you're like, well, how are they going to beat him? Oh, okay, they just cut off his head. And then, like, it was cool in the sense that, like, Thor had an issue with him, so Thor got to kill him. And Iron Man had an issue with him snapping. They couldn't save the kid, as he said at the end of the last movie, and then he was the one who got to snap Thanos away. So it was nice. It was nice in that regard too. But yeah, man, I don't. Thanos is a character I don't think I knew too much about prior to the comic books, prior to the movies, and these little ways of them introducing him through end credits and one sort of major scene in Guardians 1. But really, they just had everybody kind of talking about him in the lead up to it. It was really cool.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's talk.
What do you think of younger Thanos?
It was interesting because you got his more like he was still arrogant. He knew the plan. He, like you said, he knew he was gonna win. He knew he was gonna die. So he had an idea. So he's a man with a plan, no matter what.
Yeah.
He's always thinking. So when we got to see this younger, I'm gonna just say young. I'm gonna say past Thanos.
Yeah.
Do his new plan. I felt it was the best way they could have done it, because any other way would have been very shoehorned in. Like having him like using this weird like nebula, these two nebula thing and the whole time travel thing, and bringing him, because the time period they chose, Thanos already knew about the Avengers, so he already had a gripe with them to begin with at this point. So there was no reason just to like, oh, who are these people in my way? He already had knowledge of them. So when he finally was able to fight them in this scenario, even though he was a few years younger and he still didn't some of the other mishaps that his older self, he hasn't felt them, but he's seen them. Knowing him, he was still annoyed, so it worked. He was like this, like it's like this one person who knows he's going to win a game, and is just prolonging it to a point just to be a dick. Yeah. That's the best way I can put it. Because even like overall his character, even without the Infinity Gauntlet and the stones, he's still a very, very powerful person for his species, for a Titan. Like that's one thing I'm glad. Like they didn't make him too overpowerful or too underpowered. He was just this very overwhelming person. And during this initial fight between the three of them, you could feel it. Even Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America just fighting them together were like they were barely holding on. Like even with all three of them ganging up on them, it was just really rough. One of my favorite.
But then like I said, but in this case, you have a 9 years younger Thanos fighting against a 9 years older Captain, and in one case overweight Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man.
Yeah, so it's interesting that they themselves aren't in their peak performance.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Well, I guess Captain America's always in his peak performance.
That's true. And what's interesting about as Guardians is the older they get, the more powerful they get, but it doesn't sound like they're I think their health also equates to that, so he wasn't in his performance. So actually no, didn't Thor have a buddy who was a bit overweight but still like very powerful warrior in his group of merry men?
That was Shazam, wasn't it?
I think so.
So Shazam. It was the dude who Zach Levi.
Yeah. So yeah, even then he's still they're still a pretty powerful person, because when he retrieves Stormbreaker and the hammer, because I'm not gonna try saying that word again, and you call the lightning and just like that was that was wonderful. And just to walk up to that and them working together to their best ability, that was fun. And then, like we mentioned, the whole Captain America hammer situation. And you know what's funny is a couple people talked to me afterwards, like, why can Captain America not hold the hammer, but why can he use lightning? And
right.
By any chance, can you answer that? Or I can tell you, but can you answer that?
I think that, well, my assumption was always just that was Mjolnir's power, but I might be wrong. So,
in a sense, so
right.
the way
right.
Anyone, probably online, someone's gonna rip me a new one for this. But as far as my knowledge of the movie logic, is that the hammer was like, you know how Thor in Thor Ragnarok, he is the thunder god because that's never been true in the comics. The hammer was kind of just a what's the word? Like a conduit. So his powers just flowed through the hammer. So it was kind of stored his magic. We're just gonna say magic because that's the best way to do it. So when Steve was using the hammer, he was using Thor's magic at that point. So that's why he was able to use magic. So anyone listening, that's why he has thunder powers, because he was using Thor's magic. So anyone listening, yes, that's why he can use magic. And then him just kind of using the shield and the hammer together, like back and forth, was interesting. And then the shield doing shield science, because that never makes sense when the shield works. I love how they still like they don't make the shield doesn't make any sense no matter what, but it comes back to him no matter what. But then you get to that scene where even he's getting beat down. That's a very strong scene. Like Thor's down.
Strong.
What?
I agree with you. That is a strong scene.
Yeah, and then when you get to the point where he's beating all three of them, and Captain America's like out for the count in a sense, and you really get this sense of dread, and because Thanos just barely broke a sweat at that point, and he's like his armies are coming down, and like we're gonna get talking to the second half of the battle scene, but you can really feel it. Like Captain America's looking at this Goliath, his army, and the way they put it in the cinema, it looks like that's like a really wonderful screensaver. Like Captain America against the world at that point. That like I actually felt a little. Like I felt nervous at that point. I knew there was something gonna happen, but at that moment I did have this like lump in my throat. Like what's gonna like? How is he gonna get out of this? And then we get the big scene of everyone, and I mean everyone, coming through. So what was your reaction when this happened, when the portals start to open?
There's a few things. Well, one, the on your left scene where he says, hey Cap, I'm on your left. Like that's I didn't realize it at the time, but apparently that's a throwback, because that's one of the first things that Falcon says to
when they're running, when they first meet,
right. And then, just little things like that. Like they did that and everyone's showing up. And it's weird because it shouldn't be a surprise that everyone's showing up, right? They've done the snap. People are back. But it's neat the way it's done. It was really cool. It was very done. And it was just like, right before, I'll send it to you if I find it, but right before the movie came out, somebody had posted this animated clip. And it looked very legit. I was really trying to find out where it was from. But somebody had posted this animated clip of, they're like, this is what the last scene of Avengers of Endgame should be. And it showed like all the Avengers. And it's just a scene where it's panning and the Avengers music's playing. And it shows all the Avengers. And then it shows all the, it shows like the Guardians. And then it shows like Wanda and Vision. and then it shows, and then it's continuing, like the scene's continuing, and it shows all the X-Men, and then it shows like all the what was the Netflix ones called?
The Defenders.
Yeah, all the Defenders. And so like it shows all of them as it's panning across, and I was like, oh, this looks amazing. Like it's not going to happen, but this looks amazing. And then you know when that portal scene happened, I'm like, this is like the next best thing to that scene. You just got like it legitimately felt like one of those old, you know, one of the 90s cartoons, or one of the like a comic book. Like you're just seeing all these characters pop up, and you're like, oh my god, there's just so many damn characters in this universe that they can play with, and they are playing with.
Yeah. So honestly, we can list them all, but some of the interesting ones I want to note here are like Pepper Potts in her Iron Man suit. That's a fun one.
Yeah, and the rescue.
Yes, that was fun. I'm trying to make a couple notes. I'm trying to think. Is there anyone that surprised you? I'm trying to think here. Like that was a fun one.
In that scene, she was the one that surprised me the most, I think.
All the students from the academy. There was a lot of people there. It's because you never really see how many students are really in the Doctor Strange's school. There's a lot.
Right.
That's know that.
Am I wrong in thinking there were a lot of SHIELD people there at that time?
Where?
Like, was that the scene when they showed Fury for the first time?
No, Fury was at the funeral, and we'll talk to that.
The funeral, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just he wasn't in there. What was interesting also is some people didn't really notice is that a lot of I forget what the old group that Star-Lord and Yondu were part of, that space pirate group.
Yeah.
His ships were all those guys were there, and a lot of people don't really notice that because like hey guys, there's ships, you know, there's someone. Like note that they were part of the films too. But yeah, those are interesting. Here's an interesting one, and I want to get your thoughts on this because it's something that's been talked about a lot. Is that, you know, it's like they kind of pumped up Captain Marvel a lot, and she didn't really have too much screen time in Endgame, just that little bit in the beginning, and then her finale right here. Which I'm actually pretty good with that because, like you mentioned, there's still a lot in the universe happening, not just on Earth. So it makes sense why they kept her out because there's probably a lot of things happening, and there's already still a lot of people in this movie that you have to keep track of. But what I want to get to is, I think you know the scene I'm talking about is when Spider-Man, because they're playing Keep Away with the Gauntlet with everyone. Yeah. There's so much, and when Peter Parker gives Captain Marvel the gauntlet, you get this screen of all the female heroes. So since you've seen it, what was your thoughts when that scene came up?
You know what? I loved it because, like, I know all the women in the Marvel universe have talked about wanting to have like a movie of their own, and there is a good chance you could have some pretty good crossover with like Valkyrie and the Guardians and what's her name, and Captain Marvel, because that all technically, I mean, knowing what we know now about Asgard, we know it's on Earth, but like all those characters have a space component to them, right?
Well,
so I didn't mind it.
Well, as far as this, Valkyrie is going to be stuck on Earth as the queen of...
No, that's what I'm saying. I said, knowing what we know now from this movie, but really, like, if you wanted to, you could get Valkyrie to go to space for some sort of reason, right? But, so I was like, that's cool that they put them all together. I've heard people be like, oh, you know, it was sort of blatant that they were like, oh, they've got all the female characters or whatever. But I was like, you can't get mad about fan service in a movie that was 100% fan service.
Exactly, because we honestly, yeah, it's honestly like the initial fight were 3 guys versus another guy, and that was fan service, like that because it's interesting because this is one of the few things people thought it was shoehorned in. It was put in there for that reason. It's been one of the few topics that's been talked about in the last couple of years is female heroes representation in the media. Like Marvel has them. They might not be like the name sometimes, but they're there, and that was a good thing to show. Like, look at how many female heroes are out there, and like honestly, like watching it that many times, I'm like, it makes sense. Like it was shoehorned in, but it makes sense, and take it at whatever you want.
Like, there's so many of these movies where things like that are shoehorned in. I mean, in all the movies, they do shoehorn in a few things. Like, yes, like the scenes in the some of the scenes in the other movies, like think about Avengers 1, where Hulk beats the crap out of actually, you know what, I'll tell you what, Age of Ultron, we'll go back to Age of Ultron, the Hulkbuster versus Hulk scene.
Oh yeah,
right, you take that scene, it doesn't change at all. It's only in there to sell a toy.
Yep, totally.
Like, it's 100%. And then the Russo brothers used it to their advantage in the Infinity War movie. But like, that's the only reason that scene's in there. It's shoehorned there to sell a toy. Now, you're watching that movie. A lot of people came out of that movie and they're like, yeah, the scene doesn't make sense, but look how cool that was. Right? Look how cool the Hulkbuster was. It's the same thing here. Yeah, and maybe it didn't really make a lot of sense, but look how cool that was, seeing all the female superheroes together, right?
Exactly. You see, that's actually the best way to put it. That's the best way to put it. So okay, so let's get into the. You have something else?
So I know that there's some real weird backlash towards Brie Larson on the from a small community of the internet, and her playing Miss Marvel. But like, I wonder what the commentary would be on that scene if it wasn't her and just the rest of the women that were there.
Yeah, honestly, that's it's interesting.
You know what I mean?
It's hard to say because maybe in one universe but we're stuck in this one, and I'm fine with that.
One of the timelines.
Well, we can nitpick in a little bit because we're getting close to the end of this. Like So we see the final confrontation is led up to. Okay, so there's 2 parts actually I want to talk about. So let's talk Captain Marvel versus Thanos, then Thanos versus Iron Man. So what was your thoughts of that little interaction that Captain Marvel and Thanos had? Sorry,
you cut off there a little bit. What did I think of Thanos and what?
And Captain Marvel versus Captain Marvel. That little scene they put them fighting each other.
It was cool. I liked it. I didn't think it was over the top or anything crazy. And they have, Captain Marvel's a little bit of a tough character to write for because she's just so damn strong. So they used her sort of really sparingly in this movie. One, because apparently this was her first movie before she actually shot Captain Marvel. And, her and Thanos fighting was cool. It was like, okay, you got technically what is the 2 most powerful beings on the planet. Let them go at it. And she was super confident at the beginning of the movie. So you kind of want to see whether that would happen. And to some regards, it was very similar to the Hulk versus Thanos in the first movie, because you're like, Loki's like, you may have all these things, but we have a Hulk, and then Hulk shows up and Thanos beats the crap out of him, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, could this happen again? And they were fairly, equally matched kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point to note that they do a callback to earlier the film where it says like, we work as a team to deal with these situations, and it did take a team to defeat Thanos. And I think a lot of audience members would have been upset if she like fully like defeated him like one-on-one, but he was facing off like a group of people, and that was a good way to show that it takes a lot to defeat this man, and there was no single person out there that was going to do it. So I think that was a good way to represent her kind of moving into it also kind of limits her too. So she's not like has this Superman complex where no matter what she does, she'll always win. It just lets you know that she has some flaws that will hold her back. And I think moving forward with
I really appreciated the one line that they put in her story where she's like, Thanos has never come, like you said, she's like, she's very confident in the beginning of the movie where she's like, Thanos has never come across me. And Rhodey's like, hey man, we work as a team. We've all do that superhero thing. And she's like, yeah, but I have to do it across the planet. I have to do it across the galaxy because not every planet has Avengers. Right. And they sort of just like did this nice little nod to being like, she has to do all these things, and she has to be as confident as she has because not everybody has the Avengers to help them out because these guys are so important to Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another good point. All right, let's.
It was a really cool way to make them both seem important at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. Time to watch it a fourth more time. Okay, let's get into the scene with Tony and what happens afterwards. So as if you've been here this long, you know that Tony dies after he has his scuffle with Thanos.
Spoiler.
Give that to Manny, and then So, tell me how you felt from him stealing the stones to the point of the funeral. How were you feeling?
So the scene right before that, when him and Spider-Man, because like
they hug. Oh my god, yes,
dude. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. You know this. You've seen my Instagram, but like, so the scene, the whole time in Avengers 1, which I never, not Avengers 1, in Infinity War, I'm never really this person, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, Spider-Man's going to do something. Spider-Man's going to do something. He's going to be the reason they get away from this or something. Like, I'm like, Marvel would not have paid all this money to get Spider-Man on board and then not have him do something in this movie, especially with him wanting to become an Avenger and everything. And then I don't feel so good scene happens, and it just like broke me. And then he comes back in this movie, and up until that point, I was fairly good with everything. Like, even Tony seeing his dad was like a super emotional scene, but they did it so well. And then he sees the kid, and he just like, he feels like the look on Tony Stark's face is just so like, okay, I got to keep my daughter and I got to get the kid back. Like, those are the two important things to him. The whole time they did this flick, everything about this movie was from Iron Man's side was just like, he lost the kid. He didn't want to lose his daughter. And so those were like the two big things. And then for him to like save the world at the end, because he's just been, the Thanos thing from the very first movie, the Battle of New York, has affected his whole psyche so much. It was the reason why he It's the reason why he fought with Captain America in the first movie. In Civil War, it's the reason why he doesn't want to do this thing anymore because he's just seen too much. He's able to like put that to bed now because he's able to get rid of the guy who destroyed half of Earth 5 years ago and who fucked with his psyche by causing the Battle of New York.
All that mental strain, yeah.
Yeah. All that mental strain is done. And the only like heartbreaking thing about it is that, Morgan doesn't have her dad anymore.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Dude, I'll admit it completely. The scene got me in the theaters, like the cheeseburger scene got me in the theaters. But then when I found out what it was a callback to, because I didn't think about it then, I was like,
oh,
fucking brilliant. Fucking
really?
brilliant.
Oh, God. Oh.
I didn't catch on to it. Iron Man 1 is one of those movies I've seen, I loved, but I've not really gone back and seen too many times. And so, yeah, when I was reading up on it, because I knew when they did it, I knew there was a reason they called back on it. I just didn't know what. And
yeah,
I was like, oh.
That's also a good way, a send off to the director too.
Yeah. So. Oh, by the way, in Iron Man 2, there is a scene where Happy is in the hospital and he's watching Downton Abbey. And I think it's Iron Man 2. I'm pretty sure it's Iron Man 2. He's in the scene, he's watching Downton Abbey. And in that scene, like one of the help falls in love with the lady of the house. And I had read at the time that it was sort of a call to the fact that like Happy and Pepper get together in the comic books. Do you think, probably not going to be on screen ever, but do you think that's what happens after Tony dies?
No. Honest opinion, no, I don't think so.
Because I feel like he would just be there as a father figure. Like that's the last scene. He's like
so
Pepper, he's like Morgan's father figure at that point.
At that point, yes. I feel he's gonna be more like an uncle to not only to Morgan but also to Peter, because he's still gonna be there. I don't honestly. I don't know. It's weird. I don't think we've seen like the end of. I forget the name of the actors who play Pepper Potts or Pepper Stark.
Oh, Gwyneth Paltrow?
Yes. Why can't I remember her name? Anyways, I think she's going to be popping in here and there in the next couple films when they introduce kind of the next Iron Man, or maybe Iron Lad. Hint, hint. Because they it feels like, or Ironheart, because it's one of the things we didn't really talk about, like Ant-Man a little bit, because of this 5-year gap, his daughter grew up a significant amount,
right.
And that's also a good that's also a good scene, because that also tells you like 5 years have passed, because watching the 5-year thing and then seeing the world is interesting. You're like, oh, a lot of people are gone and everything. But seeing that moment with Ant-Man and his daughter, like, oh, wow, yeah, time has passed a good amount of time.
Yeah. Even the scene with him just like coming out of the thing and walking around. He's just walking around. He's like, what happened here? Like,
oh, if
he
you're
just
gonna
has
watch,
no clue, right?
Yeah. When you watch that, if you end up watching it again, and you probably will, keep an eye on the names of the Vanished, and you might see future characters, maybe.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I'm still hunting them down. They go so fast. But it's one of those things that people have been skulking on the internet that they might do the Young Avengers with Spider-Man. With Ant-Man's daughter, who in the comics she does become a hero, and it's interesting because they kind of did build her vision of heroes from her dad. Like, her dad's a hero and he's done so many things. Like, seeing him accomplish so much and then admiring him for the last 5 years that he's been gone, like, there is this already set knowledge that she admires her father and all these heroes. So she might want to aspire to be one in probably Ant-Man 3. Right. And they might, so yeah, we might see a young Avengers in the future.
I can live with that. I mean, the nice thing is now they're doing an Eternals. I mean, there's an Eternals coming out. There's still another Guardians. And, if you do phase 4 in space.
Phase 4, yeah.
Right? You've got just so much material to play with. What I really liked about the funeral scene?
Go for it.
And it's one of the few things, I actually caught. Like, there's a few of these things where I didn't catch. Like, I knew they were callbacks to something, but I wasn't sure. Was the kid from Iron Man 3.
Oh my god. That kid was a nuisance in my car ride home for the first showing. Everyone in my car wouldn't shut up about this kid because we didn't know who he was. And we just kept debating that he's an annoyance.
I hit that one out of the park the first time. I was so happy.
God, I needed you around, man. I needed you around because, like, honestly, there were so many other things that were bugging me from the movie, but everyone in my car ride just kept talking about, who is that kid? I was like, I don't care about who that kid was. There's so much to unpack in this film, and that's what's bothering you? That one random kid in the funeral? But yeah, for anyone listening, that kid is actually the kid from Iron Man 3. So, there you go. So, you guys don't have to...
Like, legitimately the kid from Iron Man 3. Not some other kid that they cast.
Yeah. It's the actual kid.
Like, so, it's actually him, so it was kind of neat. What was crazy was, like, I was thinking about Maria Hill, Colby Smulders, because I watch a lot of How I Met Your Mother, so I was thinking about it the other day, but I was like, it's amazing to think that she was in both those. She's been in two of the biggest movies of all time, and her, like, character and her, like, word count is probably like the equivalent of like 3 lines. I don't think she has a single line of dialogue in this movie.
Yeah, that's about right.
Hello? Yeah.
No, yeah. That's about right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. But yeah, that was it's interesting how they worked everyone's death. I felt like Tony had like the most like epic funeral, I would say. I felt like, looking back at it, I felt like Black Widow's was a little bit underwhelming, there was everyone kind of mourning. Everyone was mourning, but I
like the line of, like, what's his face? Hulk, saying, like, I tried really hard to bring her back when he did the snap. I read today that the I am Iron Man line was ad-libbed.
Really? I did not know that.
It was, yeah. Well, that's the story that's come out today, so I don't know how embellished or not it is, but apparently they tend to shoot those scenes. When they shot them, I guess they shoot them like they shoot them a few times, and so that was
to my knowledge. Yeah. So to my knowledge, as far as the Endgame and some of the other films, is that they made multiple shoots and multiple endings, so no one knew what was happening. So, and if anything got leaked, no one knew exactly what was going to happen. So it makes sense that's because surprisingly a lot of the lines from these movies are ad-libbed. Like, a lot of the Ragnarok scenes are from Chris Hemsworth are all ad-libbed. Like the whole scene, like he's a friend from work. That's all ad-libbed.
He's a friend from work was that's actually like a really fun story, because they had a kid who was on set and I might be misremembering this part, but I think he was like here there from like a Make-A-Wish thing, or so he had won to sit on thing or whatever. So he was on set watching this scene, and he said it. He said it's his friend from work, and they were like, "That's a great line," and that's where they used it.
So yeah,
I'd be so happy if that was my line.
And then kind of not Tony, then Steve's kind of, we'll say, retirement. That we'll go with that. That was good. I felt he deserved his long rest. He deserved to be happy.
Yes, he did.
And
there's so many little fun things that can come out of that, because you don't know if he had like children or if he did anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because is there anything you wanna talk about before we nitpick it to the bones? Because there's like so many weird things talking about this time travel shenanigans that.
I think the only thing that really got what I'm super excited about now is like Guardians 3 is going to be so cool now.
Oh,
you've got your Asgardians, right? You've got your Asgardians of the universe, and you've got like how are they going to incorporate Gamora into the new one?
Yeah, well, we'll find out. We'll find out how.
Like, I mean, was she on the ship when they left?
No, she's out in the world.
Right. So Quill's love of his life is out there somewhere, and they're traveling with Lebowski Thor.
Oh, it's gonna.
So yeah, no, that's a real fresh take on a cool story now, because you can take the humor from Ragnarok, which was definitely inspired by the Guardians films, and you can mesh them together, and all those characters work because they were super funny in the first Infinity War. And now you can freshen up that franchise in a really big way.
So before we get into the nitpicking, how many times did you cry?
I told you the Spider-Man one got me. Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and Iron Man got me. Most of the other ones I was pretty good, surprisingly. I was shocked at a lot of stuff. Like I said, the Black Widow thing shocked me. The fact that like a couple of characters didn't come back shocked me. But I think in terms of like, I didn't really cry as much in this movie. It was more the getting hit in the feels a lot, and I think I got hit in the feels the hardest for the Spider-Man Iron Man reunion. And cheeseburgers.
Yeah, the whole like his will and what's been spreading on the, and then the whole line that's been on the internet, like I love you 3000. That's
yeah. I'm so glad I almost had that spoiled for me, and I'm glad that I didn't. So it's a good day.
Yeah. So all right. So anyone listening, if you made it this far, that's kind of been our like exciting thoughts and a little nitpick, but we're gonna really like now we're gonna involve ourselves. Dwell. There you go. Thank you. Words, man. I can't speak. We've been talking so much. It's just a fun movie. It's a 3-hour long movie, so there's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of the crazy stuff, because this is time travel and it kind of really messed up a lot. So let's talk Loki and the Tesseract scene.
Well, what's nice is he's alive now.
Is he? Yeah, he is.
Probably because the Tesseract, right? He escaped.
Yeah, but so this is where it gets nitpicky, because all the events are still supposed to play out. He escaped, but that was back in 2012, right? If I'm right, 2012, 2014. Whatever, it's the past.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the things should still lead up to that, and he should still die. But then he was never in prison for Thor: The Dark World, He's never had that moment where he. So yeah, it's weird because so it's so much. They really messed up a lot. They messed up a lot.
Yes.
Going back in time. We have that. I'm trying to think here. What are the things they kind of.
Well, you have from Thor: The Dark World onwards. Thor doesn't have his hammer.
Well, they go back in time and fix. So some of the things they do to fix. So here's the main thing. Let me tell you. The main thing that messes up the timeline is Steve Rogers going back in time and living his life. Because that was never supposed to happen. Unless Steve Rogers did end up doing that.
But there's 2 Captain Americas.
Yeah, but then... so this is what's weird. Like, because it doesn't... So the way they time travel it's supposed to work in this... Like, it's weird because... Like, there's always been this weird set of rules in movie rules. We'll say movie rules in time travel where they mention it. You're never supposed to talk to your past self and, yada, 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 all that stuff. But this movie is, like, broke some of those things because at the end of Endgame, they end up killing Thanos. So where's the Thanos of that? Once they kill him, then there's no snap in the originally, So... Yeah,
there's no snap.
So it just doesn't make sense, and there's no reason for a lot of the things to happen because he's dead. So they're currently living in like an alternate like timeline, and on top of that, then Steve just continues to mess it up by going back in time. We're just like it's really weird right now because
I'm wondering because they're saying that Phase 3 ends with Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yes, Phase 3 will end.
It's not this movie. So I'm wondering if they'll maybe talk about some of that because there's like everybody in his class got snapped.
Isn't that convenient that everyone in his friend group got snapped? Because
I mean,
no, think about it.
Guardians.
Oh yeah, it's true. But think about it this way: imagine your podcast group and let's just say that you and Tash got snapped and only Dwen and Manny were still there. They aged 5 years.
You mean Joe? Hold on. You mean Joe?
Yeah, what did I say?
You said Dwen and Manny.
No, I said you. I said you. Oh, did I accidentally say you twice?
Yeah, you said me and Tash and then Dwen and Manny. So,
well, oops. Sorry, Joe. So, yeah, you and Tash get snapped. So, Joe and Manny are still there. 5 years happen. And then they're slightly older. And you guys are the current age you guys are. It's I don't know, it's weird. It's weirder for like adults, I'm going to say. But for them in the high school area, because then if you knew some of your friends, they're roughly what? They're freshmen or sophomores? Sophomores?
In this one, they were sort of freshmen.
Okay, so a lot of the friends,
they were sort of freshmen, yeah.
Okay, so a lot of them are now like in their late teens, maybe early 20s. I'm gonna say late teens. So a lot of them are done with school. Some of them are in college, probably. So a lot of their friends are like, they're gone. They've grown up. Like it's really, it's an awkward thing because, like I said, if it was your group, your podcasting group alone, it wouldn't be too awkward. It would just be a lot of explaining, like this happened, that happened, but it would be some semblance of what it used to be, right? Or am I wrong?
I don't know. There are days we all kind of wish Manny got snapped. So and
that's my soundbite.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. I think it's played more for the younger people because I think we're going back to the scene with Ant-Man's daughter, and like I think it makes more sense because they just age. Their parents' ages quicker than adults. I think I'm trying to say that right.
Yep.
So I hope we get a little bit more explanation because it is leading into this weird awkward space of like can you answer some questions, because like we got a fun movie, and we can both agree on that. But it left us like in such an awkward.
There were some questions.
There's some questions. So, and we're in such an awkward spot, and hopefully, Spider-Man can answer a couple questions that will point us in the right direction. We're like, what's our timeline and a lot of things. Like we're living in a new world now as far as Marvel movies.
I'm interested. I'm sort of interested to see how, like, what's the next, like, what the next phase leads to, because every phase up until now led to Avengers, right? So, like, I'm wondering, is the next phase? Do you even lead to Avengers? Do you lead to another Avengers movie, or do you just go, we're going to put this on ice for a little bit, and we'll build a new team, or we'll just get everybody together to fight somebody?
That's true.
In some way, you know?
Yeah, it's we're up on the air on that, because we lost 3 of our main people. Actually 4, because Thor's out in space now. The only one left is Hulk in the back.
Right.
I'm not like discounting like Iron Machine. But yeah, the only original person between is Hulk, like Hawkeye, but he's gonna be, he's lived 5 years without his family. I think he's due also for a retirement with his family for real this time. So
he's killed enough people now that he's okay.
So he served his due. I think like Hawkeye's done. Because that only leaves.
I think they
go for it.
What, that only leaves Hulk?
Hulk and Scarlet Witch, Black Panther, Spider-Man, and each of them, at least, it's weird because Black Panther, like, he's in charge of a whole country. Like, it's hard for me to see him like, oh, I got diplomacy in in a couple hours, but I can hop in and go help you guys out this afternoon. Like, I honestly don't see that, because I think he's yeah.
No, just while he was saying that, I was like, what will be cool though is now, like, in Black Panther, you got to see this like crazy prosperous African nation or whatever it is. But now you're gonna go 5 years later, and 5 years later they didn't have they don't have their king, they didn't have their science leader, they didn't have. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what that world looks like now.
So yeah, we're just gonna. Honestly, I'm trying to get into the heads of these guys, but
I think you're better off not, though.
Sorry?
I think you're better off not to get in the heads of these guys, because whenever we've just thought of where they're going to go left, they always go right, and vice versa. And just, they seem to know what they're doing, and they're. I mean, I just would never have thought when this whole process was made that they would have had even attempted to make a Guardians of the Galaxy movie and make them good. And they seem to, they're like, okay, well, we have this property, we're going to play around with it, we'll see what we can do with it. And they seem to be making some cool stuff.
No, yeah, and I think I'm fine without like a big team up movie for a while, because now I think it's a good time to kind of cool down, because we've always been given like two Marvel movies a year, almost 2 or 3 a year.
Yeah,
I think it's time to kind of slow down a little bit, and then just kind of build up again. It's not, I think it's that time just to build up again, because now that Disney owns all the Fox properties of X-Men and the Fantastic Four, we might not anytime soon, probably in the next 5 to 7 years, we'll we'll get a chance to see the new X-Men's and the Fantastic Four movies coming out.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And then there's your team ups, right? So like,
yeah,
I think Disney's going hard on all the Disney Plus shows that they have. They have a Loki show coming out. They have a Wanda and Vision show coming out. So there's some interesting stuff that they're going to build out of that. Like, I'm super psyched. I'm super psyched.
Did you hear that they announced another Marvel TV show?
No. What?
It's going to be featuring Ghost Rider.
Interesting. Is that
Yeah.
Ghost Rider from the S.H.I.E.L.D. show?
Yes, but it's gonna be a reboot of his character, but it's still gonna be the same actor. It's gonna still be the Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider.
Okay. Interesting.
So yeah. So there's a possible team up with the Hulu Netflix, not the Hulu heroes, because there's I've never watched those. Yeah, I haven't seen them. Like, they're in season 3
I saw the first season and I really enjoyed it.
Okay. I'll take your word for it and watch it then.
They did the first season because they dropped the first season in bits, weekly, so it was easy to ingest a lot of it. The second season they dropped as a full binge, so I didn't get a chance to watch it properly. But I'll try and get my hands on it before. We don't get Hulu up here, so we gotta work it out with whoever decides to show it. But I'm interested to see that if he's going through that show, that'll be really interesting.
Ooh, I might have a proposal for you then. We'll talk about that after this. But no, yeah, it's apparently there's a possible team up with those guys, Ghost Rider. There's a lot. Disney Marvel is really. I think they're going to be this next phase after Endgame. It's going to be
this next phase after Endgame. This next phase after Endgame is going to be the true test of how strong they are, because you sort of had a chance to build all these characters. Do you play the slow game again, or do you go hard and cause a little bit of superhero fatigue? I'm hoping they go slow, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. God, that was honestly longer than I thought. When originally we were discussing.
We thought this was going to be a half hour.
Oh yeah. What? Look at us. I don't think. I think in any general discussion, if you're talking with anyone, as far as this film is concerned, I don't think you can really, unless you're being super, even then, I think you can barely get half an hour. But knowing each other and how big fans of not only the genre but this property, I should have expected us to. I didn't think we were going to go to. We're almost as long as the movie.
My headphones were fully charged at the beginning of this. One has already died. So.
Okay, so all right. Is there any questions you want to ask me?
I don't know about questions, but the only thing I was the end credit scene where they're doing not the end credit scene, but the scene where they're everyone's names showing up and the signatures. Ooh. Their signatures are showing up. I thought that was a really cool touch, and that was nice. I learned from the Kevin Smith podcast again that's actually from I don't know the name of the movie, but the last Star Trek movie with the original cast. That's how they signed off in that movie.
Really?
That's cool. They had all of the pictures show up and scenes from the past, and then have them actually put their signatures to their names.
That is cool. I did not know that, because all 3 times I've watched it. The 2 other additional, I sat down and just waited till that scene, just to appreciate that, because that is a nice send off, just this nice sign off.
Yeah. And then there's one thing that I didn't realize, because I knew there were no end credits. But did you stay till the very end?
Of course, you like my entire first showing did. Everyone was looking at me weird when I went the second and third time, and I just left. They're just looking at me like you got this is my plus time. I'm good.
Mm-hmm. So at the end of the scene, did you notice the little right before the end of the scenes, end of the credits? Did you notice like the hammer being hit?
Oh yeah, the whole Iron Man thing.
Yeah. I was like,
go for it.
I just couldn't figure out what that was about. Like, was it just a send off to Iron Man or?
So what was interesting is the one thing I did was Google if there was going to be end credits because I just wanted to know is there going to be anything because one, it's going to be a 3-hour long movie. Do I have to sit through credits? You know, like I'm willing to do it. I just want to know if it is. If not, because it was going to be a long movie. So I knew there was going to be an audio stinger at the end. So I I'm going to sit through this all. Like I've sat through almost every single movie to the end. Why is this one any different? So, like I stated earlier, everyone in my car ride were complaining about the kid. I was thinking, what is that noise? Like, I thought it was something being forged. Like they're forging something new. And then I finally Googled it, and it's like, oh, that's the scene from Iron Man when he's in the cave. Like, oh, that's nice. That's a good way of sending that off.
Yeah.
So, I honestly was baffled until I looked it up. Because I had to look it up. I had to look up who the kid was and what that the noise was. Because everyone in my car was annoying me.
Yeah, I didn't know what the noise was. The kid I got, but I didn't know what the noise. But I think it was it was neat that the Russo brothers were funny because they were just like, look, the movie's called Endgame. there's no more credits. And I think the other thing was, the Captain America scene is a post-credit scene, right? His ending with the dancing and the dancing with,
I think that's the best way to say that. Yeah. It's his way to end his thing. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
that was good. Oh, such a fun movie. Okay, gotta go see it one more time then. One more time. All right. If that's it. We've been talking for a good chunk of time. Just nerding out. But it's always fun to talk with you.
Right back at you, man.
I've been having fun listening to your guys's is it March? Yeah, no, March. Yeah, March episodes. You guys have really delved deep into some scandalous topics.
Oh yes, our sex series. That was for April.
April. What month? Yes. Yeah, April. I do apologize.
We're in May now.
Oh shit! God, time just flies by. God. Yeah, it's been it's been fun learning a little bit more about you guys into very deep detail. But yeah, honestly, it's always fun to listen to you guys. Always fun to talk with each of you individually, and
we really appreciate all the support from your end too, man.
Thank you. So, is there anything you want to say before we sign off ourselves?
No, man. I think other than maybe promoting our podcast, which is the No Inner Monologue, you can find it on most podcast apps, pretty much all the major ones. Just look for the No Inner Monologue, or you can follow us on any of our social media apps at No Inner Pod, because we always have a hard time spelling monologue.
You and me both.
Yeah. But give us a listen to over there. We talk about all the same sort of stuff that you talk about, Jesus. So there's always a nice little common bond that way. And other than that, you know what? This was a great conversation. I've not really had a chance to talk to too many people about it because a lot of my friends haven't had the chance to go see it. So, and then when the two of us who have seen it are around, we lose out because there's a third person who hasn't seen it yet. So it was good to get my nerd out.
So here. So I know you guys have had discussion because Manny's a big advocate for no spoilers. What is yours? What is Dwen's policy of spoilers?
I don't like spoiling things for people. I mean, I've
My question really is like,
yeah.
So my question is more like, when is it appropriate to talk about it in public? Like, when can you publicly start talking about something?
I'd say a month, right? Like,
oh wow, you're pretty generous. A month.
Well, here's the thing, man. It's like, Manny throws out this thing about how if you don't go the first weekend, you give up your right for spoilers. But I'm like, a lot of people just can't make it to the movies every weekend or even to opening screenings. Like, I know if I go to an opening screening, I'll be dead the next morning. Like, I have to be up at 6:30 and in a train, in my office with my office chair for 8:30. So it's different for different. The world's sort of different in that regard for a lot of people. And then you throw in people who have like kids, and it's just difficult. So if you're one of these people who have followed along on this journey for like 22 years and you just didn't get the opportunity to watch it the first weekend, some jackass comes up to you and be like, Iron Man dies. Like, fuck off.
Okay, we'll end it here. It's fine. All right, then. Everyone, go check out Dwen and his friends out in No Inner Monologue. Until next time, see you.
Hey everybody, my name is Grant, and I host a podcast called It's Trivial. Now, It's Trivial is a game show in which I pit comedians, musicians, podcasters, and other interesting people against one another, usually in front of a live audience for the sake of public ridicule. Hope you'll check it out. There's something there for everybody. There's stuff for people who like movies, music, history, geography, comic books, and even more. Be sure to give me a follow here on social media on Instagram and Twitter at It's Trivial Show, and check out the entire first season of It's Trivial now in your favorite podcast app. Thanks.